From the NewsChannel 5 network, this is Inside Politics.
Hello, everyone. I'm NewsChannel 5's political analyst Pat Nolan. Welcome to Inside Politics. It's been yet another crazy week in Washington. President Donald Trump and his allies continue efforts to overturn the November election, despite losing dozens of lawsuits. What appears to be a final case is now before the U.S. Supreme Court, while the Electoral College meets to vote next week on Monday on the whole matter on who's going to be elected president. The president's persistent claims the nation's voting system is rigged, particularly in the battleground states, are creating concerns, especially among Republicans in Georgia. That's where two election runoffs for the U.S. Senate seats in Georgia will be held on January 5th. That will determine which national party controls the U.S. Senate. Back in Washington, both parties in Congress, along with the Trump administration, remain deadlocked over providing more coronavirus relief to the millions of Americans who've lost their jobs and businesses, while facing further financial ruin in the new year, losing perhaps their homes and facing growing insecurity about being able to feed themselves and their families. In the midst of all this chaos and uncertainty, we have two of the best political analysts, Larry Woods, Democrat Larry Woods, and Republican Bill Phillips as our guest on Inside Politics this week. They will try and put all these challenges into perspective and discuss what things may lie ahead. Gentlemen, thank you both for being on the program. Appreciate you coming in.
Glad to be here.
Let's start with a question for both of you. This lawsuit I mentioned before the Supreme Court is from Texas and 17 other attorney generals in other states. They argue that the court should throw out the millions of mail-in votes cast by voters in several battleground states because they say this kind of voting is impossible to determine if there's any fraud. Of course, they've been claiming fraud all along. Is that a valid argument, or is this just, as some critics say, a press release masquerading as a lawsuit? Larry?
I think that's a good description. As a lawyer, I'm embarrassed about the low quality, shoddy workmanship, shoddy thinking by the lawyers involved in these kind of lawsuits. We've all seen it in the headlines for a month now. This lawsuit's ridiculous, Pat. It's arguing that the 62 electors from the 4 battleground states should be disqualified because of the reasons and others you mentioned. Well, if they do that, the 12th Amendment says when the Electoral College meets, it's not 270 votes that get you elected president. It's a majority of the electors. All they're going to do is reduce the number of electors, and Joe Biden still wins. He still has a majority. All 62 electors are kicked out.
Bill,
this lawsuit's just a disgrace.
Bill, what do you think? Does this lawsuit have any merit to it?
Well, I'm puzzled why Tennessee thinks it needs to be a part of it, since we're not one of the battleground states. It's very clear what happened in the presidential election in Tennessee. And also, I'm a little puzzled why the president and the administration can't admit that they have been defeated fair and square. The way our system is set up, it'd be impossible to rig a national election.
Bill, Larry, this whole situation with Tennessee being involved, Tennessee's Attorney General Bill Slattery is the one who put us into that situation. He's not elected by the public. He's appointed by the state Supreme Court. With a political case like this, doesn't this raise the likelihood that people are going to start thinking that there needs to be more voter accountability in that office, not just an appointed position by the state's high court?
Absolutely. This is the best argument I've seen in my lifetime for why we should elect the Attorney General by popular election as a statewide office. You know, there's no accountability for Slattery, our Attorney General, doing stupid stuff like this. He gets away with it. Nobody's going to call him in their office like voters can and say, look, you're not doing your job.
Bill, over 100 Republican congressmen have also joined into this suit. They've signed on as friends of the court. I checked, and 5 of our 7 Republican congressmen have signed up. The only 2 who have not are Dr. Phil Rowe in the 1st District, who's retiring, and Dr. Scott Desjardins. Mark Green, Tim Burchett, Chuck Fleischman, John Rose, and David Kustoff did sign. Is this how party loyalty is being measured in the Republican Party right now, particularly in Washington?
I suspect that in Washington that's the case, that this is one more sort of last hurrah of the support for President Trump. And it also underscores the press release versus lawsuit debate.
Larry, if the Electoral College is now set to vote on Monday, isn't the court going to have to issue a ruling on this pretty quickly one way or the other? Or it's going to be too late, or the whole lawsuit will be moot?
Absolutely. But even if they rule Friday, Saturday, Sunday, any of those days, again, what's Pennsylvania and Georgia and Michigan and Wisconsin going to do then? Their legislature can't meet in an hour's time and pass new laws, especially doing it retroactively. That would violate the Constitution. If the court rules in favor of the state of Texas, it's just chaos, worse chaos than we've had already.
Bill, what kind of public confidence has already been lost or damage done from all the complaints by the president and others about contesting this election and the fraud? I mean, this problem will soon be longer than what happened between Bush and Gore. In fact, by next week when they voted, it'll be a longer situation than it took to resolve what happened in Bush-Gore. Have we taken some major damage to our electoral system?
Well, I suppose that the length of this debate is a milestone in the legacy of the administration. But what the president has managed to do now, and he seldom fails in his marketing abilities, but he has marketed his legacy into that this will be the lead no matter what else they look at the administration has done.
Bill, the president has indicated that if he lost the Electoral College vote, he would admit that Joe Biden is president-elect, but he doesn't indicate he'll ever concede the race. Is this just about continuing to be a sore loser, or is it about setting the stage for the president to run again in 2024?
Well, there's nothing that requires that there a concession speech. It's just always been a courtesy through the years. And if he refuses to go to the inaugural, he won't be the first president that left town instead of watching their successor taking the oath. I think he has dreams of running again, and this is where the party is going to have to decide if it's going to get up and dust off and start over and start moving towards the next election, or if it's going to be 50 different parties that are doing pretty well at the state level.
Larry, there do appear to be efforts afoot in the House to get Congress to reject the Electoral College vote report when it comes to lawmakers in early January. Do you think it's possible there'll be efforts to try to keep Joe Biden from being president right up until he raises his right hand to take the oath of office?
I'll bet everything in my bank account Trump will keep trying right up to the first week of January when the joint session of Congress meets to count the Electoral College votes. The Constitution provides there can be objections. Obviously, any objections that are made then have to go be voted on separately by the Senate and the House. Obviously, Republican objections will pass the Senate with Mitch McConnell. Obviously, with Nancy Pelosi, no Republican objections going to pass the House. So it's not going to change anything if they object following what Trump wants in January. But it'll be another great, as you and Bill both pointed out, another great press release for Trump, more money for him, more publicity. So, yeah, that's going to happen.
Democrat Larry Woods and Republican Bill Phillips are our guests. We're talking about what's been going on in Washington this week with the continued controversy over the presidential election. Next, we'll turn to the election coming up in Georgia for the control of the U.S. Senate. Back after this break.